now we'll have Luna Pantalone ده موجودة إن شاء الله معنا المركز الثقافي الإيطالي the Italian Cultural Institute. She will talk with us about the role of music and storytelling in language learning. الناس اللي حابة بقى تستخدم بقى الميوزك والستوري تيلينج وهي بتتعلم لغات, it will be very beneficial. Luna, you can start now. Please يعني start right away.
Yes. Welcome everybody. I'm Luna Pantalone. I'm an Italian teacher, singer, and music therapist. Welcome to this speech about language learning and creativity, art and language, the role of music and storytelling in language learning. As Italian teacher, I used to ask to my students, why do you want to study Italian language? So here there are some of most common answers to this question, such as, for example, for the charm of the Italian culture and traditions, to work with Italian companies, or to become a translator, interpreter, to travel, make new friends, and change my life, or because it's a creative, musical, and poetic language. And I would like to focus on the last answer, because it's a creative, musical, and poetic language. So, what do creativity, music, and poetry have in common with language learning? I would like to check a little bit the relationship between language and music, because they have many common points. For example, first of all, they are both universal communication systems. They share the four basic skills, such as listening, speaking or singing, and reading, writing. They have phonology, syntax, and semantic, and they are expressed through the melody, tone, rhythm, frequency components. Last but not least, children can learn both music and language from their surroundings by absorption and imitation, thanks to mirror neurons and mnemonic process. And this is about the learning process. So we have to step back, to go back to our childhood, to check a little bit which was our natural learning way. Mirror neurons, observation, passive memory, empathy. These elements are very important both for music and language learning process. Mirror neurons are kind of resonance system in the brain. They make us social, empathetic, and compassionate beings. Thanks to mirror neurons, for example, when the mom smiles to the child smiles back. Or, for example, when someone yawns in a room, someone else feels suddenly the same urge to yawn. Through observation and repetition, we make unconsciously our nerve tracts memorize new patterns and new rules. Imitation is a core competence of human learning. It's very important in music and very important in language. Babies learn complex abilities and skills such as facial expressions, movements, rules of language, social interactions, just by imitating. And here we have just a small example, an experiment.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her. This baby starts pointing.
Okay.
She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions. They turn away. They feel the stress of it. they actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
I'm here. And what are you doing?
Okay. This is just a small example of how these mirror neurons work, and it's about our learning process. The point is that we can apply the same concept to adulthood, because this urge to imitate and this dynamic continues in our adulthood. We learn more naturally, intuitively, and brain-orientated if we put the imitation on the foreground. And this is also useful when we learn new sounds, speech melody, and speech rhythm, and this concerns language learning. And we have an example of this in music, in singing. Okay. Just a short example. This was Bobby McFerrin, the inventor of circle song. So we come to the human voice. The human voice, of course, the spectrum of the human voice is made of frequencies. Applied to the speech, the human voice spans a range of frequencies from about 125 Hertz to 8,000 Hertz. We measure frequencies in terms of Hertz. The lowest frequency is called the fundamental frequency and helps to identify pitch and therefore speech intonation. Then consonants, they space between 2000 Hertz and 5000 Hertz, and they are the result of sound creation by air, mouth, and teeth. Vowels are most prominent between 500 Hertz and 2000 Hertz, but they are created by sound resonance, and they are different from person to person. Why we talk about frequencies? It may sound a little bit weird, but it's about ear training. Ear training is fundamental in music, of course, and in language, of course, in language learning, of course, because when we switch from our mother tongue to a foreign language, we have to deal with these frequencies. Because of that, not all languages have the whole spectrum of the frequencies concerning the human voice. Some languages are richer in frequencies, and some languages are poorer in frequencies. We can see that, for example, Spanish, French, and Italian are pretty poor in frequencies. But Russian, for example, German, also Russian, most of all, covers the whole range. What does it mean? That if I am a native Russian speaker, will be pretty easy for me to learn any other language, because I already have these frequencies in my ear, we can say. So it will be very easy for me to reproduce the same frequencies, the same sounds. But if I come from Italian, for example, in my case, it will be a little bit harder to get the new frequencies, to get the new sound, and to reproduce them with a proper pronunciation and intonation. Alfred Tomati said that we cannot reproduce a sound that we cannot hear. So ear training is essential, is the first step in to learn a foreign language, to acquire these new frequencies and harmonics and to be able to reproduce them with proper pronunciation and intonation. Another musical element in language is rhythm, the rhythm in speech, for example. How rhythmically do we speak? We speak very rhythmically. For example, if we have the style of a public speech, or we speak a little bit arrhythmically if we are hesitant or nervous, or with some degree of rhythmically in casual speech. Rhythm is timing patterns among syllables. And we can say there are two types of sentence rhythm in languages. And this changes from language to language. English, German, Russian, for example, they have a stressed timed rhythm. There are stressed syllables at regular intervals. And the time between the stressed syllables and the next one is barely the same. Other languages, for example, Italian, French, Spanish, Indian language, they have a syllables timed rhythm. So the rhythm is up to the syllable. Each syllable lasts more or less the same amount of time, and it doesn't matter if it's stressed or not. While in the first case, the rhythm is depends on the stress. Okay. Talking about Indian language, I would like to share an example, because Indian language is very interesting. The connection between language and music for Indian people is so strong and so important. I would like to share with you this example of Konakol, that is the art of performing percussion syllables vocally in South Indian Carnatic music. This is important because and interesting because for Indian people, learning rhythm and learning language and the capacity to reproduce the rhythm with the hands, and so playing hands simply or playing a drum, and the capacity to reproduce the rhythm with the mouth and speaking is the same. You can't be a good musician if you aren't a good speaker. Okay, so and they have competition about this. So I would like to share this example.
Di tom nam tarigidagada di tom nam tarigidagada di tom nam tarigidagada
di tom nam tarigidagada di tom nam tarigidagada di tom nam tarigidagada
nam tarigidagam ta di tom nam tarigidagam 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 அப்பன் நீ அம்மை நீ அயனும் நீ அன்புடைய மாமனும் மாமியும் நீ ஒப்புடைய மாதரும் உன் பொருளும் நீ.
As you can see, we have many elements here. We have rhythm, we have articulation, pronunciation, intonation. So it works on many levels. Coming to acoustic details, to sound in language, no? That is about phonology. We can have a sort of versus issue. For example, phonology versus grammar. That's because grammar and vocabulary are two competencies concerning the left hemisphere of the brain. That is well known as the part of the brain for language learning, the centerpiece of this language processing. While the right hemisphere determines the capacity to distinguish the acoustic details, such as basic sounds and phonological elements. these left and right hemispheres are different, but they have to cooperate. They have to collaborate together. And that's why music and language learning have to have something to do together. If we take a look at the brain, the left part of the brain deals with these functions: analysis, logic, idea, facts, math, training. And the right part of the brain deals with creativity, intuition, arts, creation, feeling, imagination. We can say the left part is the logic analytical part, and the right part is the creative part, dealing with music, for example. Okay. But language and music work with both this side, and we have to keep a balance between these two hemispheres and these two kind of functions. The right brain deals with creative skills, inquisitive attitude, creativity, imagination. The left part deals with executive functions, inhibitory control, working memory, cognitive flexibility. This balancing between these two sides of the brain, these two sets of skills, determines our intelligence. But we don't have just one type of intelligence. As Howard Gardner theorizes, there are multiple intelligences. Gardner says that students have a unique set of capabilities and skills. Many students are highly skilled, intelligent in many ways, not just one way. And teachers should help their students by using differentiated instructions to make progress. Usually in school, there is this focus on the verbal linguistic intelligence and the logical mathematical intelligence, but we have many others, such as the spatial visual, the bodily kinesthetic, the musical, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalist intelligence. Here there is a scheme of these different types of intelligences. We have the linguistic one, the capacity to find the right words to express what we mean. We have the spatial and naturalist, visualizing the world in 3D, also the capacity to orienteer. Naturalist, understanding living things and reading nature. Bodily kinesthetic, sport, coordinating your mind with your body. Musical, discerning sounds, pitch, tone, rhythm, and timbre. Logical mathematical, quantifying things, making up hypotheses and proving them. And also these two types of intelligences are the psychological intelligences, the intrapersonal, the capacity to understand ourselves, our feelings, and the interpersonal, the capacity to sense people, to understand their feelings. It's empathy, and it's a kind of intelligence. So the challenge is make these different types of intelligences cooperate and help each others, such as the musical intelligence can help the linguistic one, but also the logical mathematical one, and also the bodily kinesthetic one, because they are correlated. We have 7 keys to language learning. We should have these 7 keys in this vision, of course. The first one is you have to learn the grammar through the language and not the language through the grammar. With this first rule, we go back to the first point of this presentation, that was how did we learn when we were children, in this intuitively way, brain orientated, using this mirror neurons and learning by imitation and absorption by the surroundings. So first of all, a child learns the language in this way, and just only after he will go to school to learn grammar and rules and everything. So we can say he will start from the right side of the brain, and in the second moment he will step in the left side of the brain. We don't have to rely so heavily on the intellect, just on the intellect, but also we can rely on passive memory and unconscious reflex of imitation. That's why, for example, when we stay in a foreign country, our language improves a lot, because we literally take a bath in these sounds and we absorb all the time. So we have big steps in learning process. Repetition, 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 both in music and in language, is strengthening the imitation. Language learning is a personal process. Again, this is about creativity. It's not just about absorbing some rules, but also adding something personal, and finding a creative way that is unique for each of us. Also, we have to balance the left side. So we have to also take care about the structures and the logical analytic part. So a regular focused study for at least 20 minutes per day is very important. And also to choose a method is fundamental. These two parts are about the left side of the brain. Last but not least, motivation is the key element to success. Motivation is about also social interactions, because often our motivation is related to our goals in life, how we can be, what we can do, we want to do in our life. Also, it's related to communication, to social interactions. Songs and storytelling are a playful bridge, we can say. Why we should use songs and storytelling in language learning? A playful bridge, for me, this means that they are this bridge between the classroom study with the book and exercises and everything, and real life. Songs are considered authentic material for glottodidactics. They concern the pragmatic and social aspects of the language, so they can provide and improve motivation and pleasure, soft skills, social interaction, emotional contact, personal involvement. They can improve also vocabulary learning, translation effort, and more concrete memory representation. They can give new input through different style and idiomatic expressions, and they can be very useful for the pronunciation and articulation, especially with vowels. Storytelling, on the other side, but they are kind of companion, is one of the oldest forms of human communication. It could be very playful and creative process in order to engage the whole learner with the whole, the four skills, basic skills. Speaking, listening, reading, and writing could be all together, and the multiple intelligences. This can create community, cross-cultural awareness, and self-expression, especially when we create a story together, and we tell a story together, no? Like a shared process, not just one person. Can enhance the complex vocabulary functions and grammatical structures, and it's useful to train the linguistic improvisation through the fluidity of telling. Improvisation is another common element, very musical one. We can just think to jazz music, for example, no? With few rules, and then playing with the rules and making improvisation all the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. I would like to finish this presentation singing for you, because I'm an Italian teacher, a music therapist, and a singer. So I would like to share with you these different types of skills and intelligences that I have. So I would like to sing for you this song.
Chiedo scusa, per favore, abbiamo solo 2 minuti, quindi allora
Okay.
Grazie mille.
Okay, so I stop here. I will stop here.
No, allora dopo, diciamo, dopo questo dobbiamo finire.
Questa è l'ultima
Va
parte.
bene, nessun problema, dai.
Se no possiamo concludere.
Possiamo passare, nessun problema.
Ok. Va bene, sì, possiamo finire anche, va bene. Ok, non so se c'è qualche domanda o...
Allora, grazie mille. Grazie mille per la presentazione, è stato veramente un piacere, Luna.
Grazie.
È stato molto utile anche, grazie mille.
Grazie, arrivederci.
Arrivederci.
Grazie a voi per l'invito. Salve, arrivederci.